Welcome to the news. We take a look at stories making headlines. Government has disclosed that some Kamlanda Ward 9 residents whose houses are built within the 50 meters radius from the rail line will not be issued with certificates of title. National Democratic Congress NDC says that the pending national dialogue process should not be perceived as a process only involving the PF and the UPND. And Young African Leaders Initiative YALI has challenged the Electoral Commission of Zambia ECZ to tell the country whether the 2021 ballot papers will be printed locally or abroad. Kamlanga Ward 9 residents whose houses were built within the 50 meters radius from the rail line will not be issued with certificates of title. Kabata Member of Parliament Given Lubinda says the developers whose buildings are within 50 meters from the railway line risk demolition. Speaking at a public meeting to discuss the issuance of certificates of title under the National Titling Program, Ms. Lubinda says government is on record to have warned settlers in 2008 not to build in the railway line while live. However, with the intervention of the civic leaders in the area, government is in the process to regularize Lilai Gondwe. Ms. Lubinda, who is also Justice Minister, says Lilai Gondwe will now be a planned settlement. Which will require a clinic, schools, and roads. Ms. Lubinda has, however, advised the wildlife developers to start looking for land elsewhere. And speaking at the same meeting, Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources Surveyor General Mr. Joseph Munango has disclosed that houses built within the 50 meters radius on either side of the railway line will not be issued with certificate of titles under the National Titling Program. According to a statement made available to Q News by Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources Public Relations Officer Diniwe Zulum, Mr. Munango has stated that it is an international standard to leave 50 meters on either side of the railway's line. Meanwhile, Medici Governance Project Manager Glenn Mwika says the job that was given to Medici Land Governance to collect property details was going on in Kamlanga Ward. Mr. Mwika says that the next stage is to verify for correctness the property details and later submit the information to the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources for production of titles. The meeting was attended by the Kamlanga Ward 9 Councillor and officials from Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources and Medici Land Governance. National Democratic Congress party consultant Shimba Kambwili says that the pending national dialogue process should not be perceived as a process only involving the ruling Patriotic Front (PF) and the opposition United Party for National Development (UPND). Mr. Kambwili tells Q News that the pending national dialogue is a national issue and must involve all political players. He says that the fact that President Edgar Lungu and Mr. Hakainde Hichilema met does not mean that the dialogue process has progressed. Mr. Kambwili insists that the dialogue process should be inclusive if it is to yield the expected results. He adds that this is why all stakeholders must be involved in the dialogue process.
I mean, people should not narrow the national dialogue to HH and President Edgar Lungu. No, it is beyond them. This national dialogue is for everybody. The issues that are affecting this country do not affect President Edgar Lungu or only President Hakainde Hichilema. It affects all of us. And unless there is an approach to respect every stakeholder, this national dialogue will never be successful. Respect everybody and be inclusive in the approach. The mere fact that President Edgar Lungu and HH met does not make any progress in as far as the dialogue is concerned. President Edgar Lungu needs to meet all people that are stakeholders in this issue. And there are a lot of people that are not happy with President Edgar Lungu in the political scene. Who he has done, he has used his presidents to trample on. He has used these powers to be unfair to them, and I think everybody must be called to the table so that these issues are resolved. So the mere fact that he met HH does not give a good sign that the dialogue will be successful.
But Council of Churches in Zambia, CCZ General Secretary Father Emmanuel Chikoya has expressed optimism that the national dialogue process will be successful. Father Chikoya has told Q News that in an QTV News in an interview that the landmark which was bringing the main stakeholders together has been scored. He says that the dialogue process will not be something that will be timeless, as they have said, timeframes which will start with the launch to mark the beginning of the process, as well as other public events which will signify that the process is concrete. Father Chikoya also adds that the responses from various stakeholders have been very positive, which also signifies the successes of the process. About mid last month, President Edgar Lungu and UPND leader Hakainde Hichilema finally met in what has been described as the beginning of the national dialogue process. The three church mother bodies also resolved the contentious matter on who to lead the process with the Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue, ZCID.
Is anything too hard? The Bible tells us, no, not with me. And so as a people who follow Jesus Christ, we have hope that the giant called Goliath, in the form of political violence, in form of tribalism, in form of regionalism, is solvable. We can and we shall overcome, and we are able to do it. I think what is critical is leadership. You know, there's political will, there's church will, traditional leadership will, and every Zambian's will. And plus the blessing of God, we will make it. I sensed goodwill when the leaders met. I mean, they were talking, no pretense, no nothing. I sensed that commitment, and that gives me hope.
And People's Alliance for Change, PAC President Anford Banda says that the national dialogue will help to ensure that future elections are conducted in a way that will satisfy stakeholders across the board. Mr. Banda says that Zambian people want to ensure that when they vote for their leaders, their votes are counted. Mr. Banda has added that the Zambian people are looking forward to a situation where elections are conducted free and fair.
What this means for the nation is that we need to understand where this dialogue started from. It came from the 2016 general elections, where some stakeholders were not happy with the outcome of the elections. And for the Zambian people, it means a lot, because they want to get to ensure that when they vote for their leaders, their votes are counted, not where their votes are not counted. So this is what it means for us as a country. We want a situation in the future when elections are conducted, every stakeholder must accept defeat, those that win must celebrate, and once the elections are over, it shouldn't drag us into talking to who rigged and who did what not. So it's very important, because it's over 2 years after the last elections, and this dialogue is an issue that is coming from the 2016 elections. You can imagine how much time we've wasted, talking about the 2016 election, because some stakeholders were aggrieved. So this national dialogue is going to help to sort out that issue, ensuring that future elections are conducted in a way that would satisfy stakeholders across the board.
The Young African Leaders Initiative President Andrew Ntewewe has challenged the Electoral Commission of Zambia, ECZ, to tell the country whether the 2021 ballot papers will be printed locally or abroad to avoid raising tension among political stakeholders. Mr. Ntewewe says it is incumbent upon the ECZ to come out clear and update the country now on where the 2021 ballot papers will be printed. He notes that the issues of printing the ballot papers are a source of electoral violence, hence the need for the electoral body to tell the country where the 2021 ballot papers will be printed as a way of evading the breaking out of any possible violence in the country. Meanwhile, Mr. Ntewewe has commended the Electoral Commission of Zambia, ECZ, for bringing the gap between itself and the stakeholders through continuous sensitization on the electoral process.
From the early point of view, we are very cognizant of one of the very perennial problems we've had in terms of elections. And one of the problems has been where ballot papers are printed. So even with the launch of the strategic plan, we are alive to the fact that the government of the Republic of Zambia, through the Ministry of Works and Supply,
has indicated that they prefer to print ballot papers within the country. So if papers are going to be printed in the country, it is very incumbent on the Electoral Commission of Zambia to come out clear and open to the Zambian citizen. Is that what is going to be expected in 2021? Is that what we are going to do? What is it we are doing to ensure that the elections and the ballot papers for 2021 are going to be done at government printers? We need a clear statement from the Electoral Commission of Zambia. But from the early point of view, we want to commend the ECZ for bridging the gap of information. We want to commend the ECZ for ensuring that education and sensitization becomes the order of the day. But let us remove areas of conflict. And one key area of conflict is the printing of ballot papers, which we want to believe.
Government has set aside $20 million United States dollars to implement the mortgage finance program for rehabilitation, construction and purchase of properties in various Zambian missions abroad. Foreign Affairs Minister Secretary Dr. Ronald Simwinga says a cabinet memorandum was recently tabled to grant authority for missions abroad to acquire mortgages for construction and purchase of properties aimed at reducing expenditure on rented chancelleries and residences for diplomat staff. Dr. Simwinga said this when he addressed diplomats at the Zambia Embassy after inspecting government properties in Washington, D.C., together with officials from the Ministry of Works and Supply. According to a statement made available to Q News by First Secretary for Press and Public Relations Embassy of the Republic of Zambia, Cosmas Chileshe, says funds are now available to start the renovation of stored works on the prestigious Kalorama Zambian property situated in the Embassy Row as soon as contractual issues with the contractor are sorted out. Dr. Simwinga explains that in the 2018 national budget, government has a mortgage financing line of $1.2 million for the mission in Washington, D.C., and the ministry will resubmit the cabinet memorandum to include new aspects of financing that have emerged over time. The Permanent Secretary has stated that the Ministry of Finance will soon present to Parliament a budget supplementary bill to seek approval to spend the additional funding to include other missions abroad, such as Berlin and Nairobi, among others facing similar challenges. Dr. Simwinga also disclosed that government is reviewing the foreign service regulations and conditions of service to address the challenges the civil service is facing in missions abroad. He further reiterated government's commitment to roll out the diaspora policy to engage Zambians living abroad to contribute to national development, as government recognizes the diaspora as key stakeholders to national development.
It's still okay because it's masonry and one bar in the back.
So there's going to be some changes here. And,
so this goes up all the way to the far end?
Yeah.
I think it's
like one office.
So the Ministry of Finance has prepared a supplementary bill which will be submitted to Parliament in the first week of December. I think in every year you submit 3 supplementary provisions. Already 2 of them have been submitted. This is the last one for 2018. It will be submitted in the first week of December. We don't anticipate any problems at all because the money is available. And there will be some ministries that will submit supplementaries asking for money. They will submit a line and ask the government to go and borrow to spend. I think those will have a more difficult route to take because they will have to convince the Treasury to look for resources for them. But for us, we have resources. All we are telling the Treasury is, can you give me a line so that I can spend what I have?
To now local news, Governance, Elections, Advocacy, Research Services, GEARS, Executive Director McDonald Chipenzi has welcomed the Electoral Commission of Zambia ECZ's intention to explore the possibility of the use of online voter registration system ahead of the 2021 general elections. And Mr. Chipenzi has called for the need for the greater transparency and accountability in the implementation process of the proposed OVRAs to avoid any emergency of suspicions from stakeholders. He says that the OVRs is worthy considering in view of expanded social media use spreading among the youths in the country and advancing technology not only in the general aspect but in the electoral process in particular. But Mr. Chipenzi has emphasized for the need by the Commission to conduct and undertake serious and intense stakeholders consultations, among them interested political parties and civil society organizations, in order to help them understand how the system operates and ever suspicions in the process. He says political parties and civil society organizations must be well educated and understand exactly the system well, which will later help the masses to appreciate its use in the 2017 to 2022 electoral cycle and ensure that data which would be captured would be secured. Last week, the Electoral Commission of Zambia ECZ launched a strategic plan for 2018 to 2022 in line with the Constitution of Zambia, Amendment Act No. 2 of 2016. And Mr. Chipenzi has advised the Commission to embark on simulation workshops for various stakeholders and ordinary citizens on the use of an online voting system being the first ever to be applied in the electoral process for better understanding and results.
But what is required, however, is for the ECZ to assure and ensure that the stakeholders are updated, educated, and indeed sensitized around the application and the implementation of the online voter registration system. If successfully implemented, I can assure you that we shall be on a right trajectory in implementing online online voting system, which I think many of the countries are using in the electoral process, because technology is advancing and we cannot be behind. Remain behind, and our seventh national development plan is mottoed as leaving no one behind, and therefore we cannot be behind in terms of technology, and yet it is advancing at a very fast rate. What again is required is that the Electoral Commission of Zambia should promote consultations, transparency, accountability in the process, so that we avoid the emergence of any speculative elements or suspicious elements in the implementation of this good process or this good intention before, during, and after. Further is to ensure and assure the public that the outcome or the data that will be captured will be secured, and that the results will also be secured, so that tomorrow we don't have people who are going to discredit the process because of
Ministry of Energy Matthew Nkoa has observed that the biofuel sector in the country is currently attracting potential investors. And Mr. Nkoa is happy that investors are expressing interest to invest in the sector. He believes that with more investment, the biofuel sector can thrive and promote development in the country.
The response is very good. I mean, we have over 70 participants here from Italy that have come from 35 different companies. This is not by mistake. They are here because they know that this country is stable, and that's why they want to invest into this country. So the people out there know that we Zambians are peaceful and we are doing things right. That's why they want to come and invest. But when you listen to other people talking within this country, they say something to the contrary, and this is not good for the country. It's like what happened in the story of the Bible, when you've got a child and two mothers are fighting for the child. The other one says, okay, let's kill the child. Then you know the one who says let's kill the child is not really the mother. So we have challenges within, but still people from outside, they feel that this is a destiny for investment.
The Presidential Initiative Empowerment Fund has disclosed that it has so far disbursed up to 13.8 million kwacha to traders and vendors since its inception in 2015. Fund National Coordinator Clement Tembo says that the initiative has so far benefited about 700 women groups in 5 provinces with the revolving fund. Mr. Tembo has told journalists at the PF Interactive Forum that Luanshya district on the Copper Belt is the most challenging area to operate in because some beneficiaries are defaulting. He says that the district recorded the highest repayment default owing to a named politician who told the people to receive the funds and that he would repay on their behalf. Mr. Tembo has however stated that the fund has been very progressive with a repayment default of about 6% since its inception. The Fund National Coordinator has further disclosed that due to high demand from the general public, the initiative diverted a bit from empowering women only to empowering groupings which include youths and churches.
We were attacked and but as usual, His Excellency has learned that people will talk ill, but you just have to go ahead if you know that the vision that you're carrying is very important. The response has been very great from our marketeers. In 2015, getting into 2016, we had a very beautiful start to the project because our default rate was only at about 6%. So the success was about 94%. So you can imagine, and I've read, you know, I've got a 7 years experience background in a banking environment. I've worked for a commercial bank. I know what it means when it comes to rating Zambians. People think that our credit, rate is quite very bad. But I'll tell you something that our marketeers have proven this wrong. Why? Because if you look at 94% success, that should be very good numbers. And you'd want to ask me, what about the 6%? What was the reason? I'll clearly state that first and foremost, there are certain instances where it's just beyond their control.
Ministry of Finance Margaret Mwanakatwe has maintained that the new sales expected to be enforced on April 1st, 2019 is not intended to disadvantage anyone. In an interview with QTV News, Mrs. Mwanakatwe says Zambia needs a tax regime that suits the current economic environment. She says that the country needs to boost its manufacturing sector, adding that as at present it does not have a value addition sector. The sales tax is collected by the retailer when the final sale in the supply chain is reached through a sale to end consumers. A value-added tax is collected by all sellers in each stage of the supply chain.
But in terms of the value chain development, we have not really advanced enough in terms of value addition. VAT is value added tax. Now in that process, in that value chain, we need to ensure that we can support the value addition chain and bring about a tax regime in terms of goods and services that is more befitting of the stage of economic development where we are. So it's not meant to tax the vulnerable poor at all. It's really just supposed to be taking cognizance of the fact that we do have a regime that doesn't rightly fit our state of development.
The ruling Patriotic Front, PF Party Media Director Sande Chanda has challenged the women movement in the country to condemn the attacks that National Democratic Congress NDC consultant Chimbaka Mbwili ushered on Copperbelt Police Commissioner Charit Katanga. Mr. Chanda says that the relevance of the women organizations will be questioned should they fail to condemn Mr. Kambwili's attacks on Mrs. Katanga, who was just doing her work. And Mr. Chanda has asked the Opposition United Party for National Development UPND to give Zambians their party manifesto as it celebrates 20 years of its existence, saying the 10-point plan the party talked about is insufficient. On Friday last week, the UPND party, which was founded by the late Anderson Mazoka, celebrated its 20th anniversary, at which party president Hakainde Hichilema said since its establishment, it has survived various storms, among them possible extinction. But Mr. Chanda has told journalists in Lusaka that UPND at 20 years of existence would do well by providing the electorates in the country with what it plans to do for them, adding that the 10-point plan the party talked about is insufficient.
They were founded in the year 1998 and they've spent 20 years in the wilderness, in the opposition, and we know that as we go to elections in 2021, the UPND has become so accustomed to losing elections, and they'll register yet another defeat. During the 20 years of the UPND, they have registered 5 direct losses, presidential defeats to a democratic process, and we are very sure, we are very certain that come 2021, the people of Zambia will take time to review.
Women and Law in Southern Africa, WILSA National Director Maureen Samlela has called on political parties to consider adopting more women in the forthcoming Sesheke parliamentary by-elections in Western Province as a way of promoting gender equality in the country. The Sesheke parliamentary constituency seat fell vacant following the death of the UPND Member of Parliament Frank Kufa-Kwande. But Ms. Samlela says, considering that there are few women who are in decision-making positions, there is need for political parties to adopt more women. She has told QTV News that it is important for all political parties participating in the forthcoming by-elections to consider adopting more women candidates. Ms. Samlela has emphasized that if women are adopted, they will make a difference as they have motherly love and a heart for the people.
So with the by-elections that will be held soon in Sesheke, in the Western Province, considering the number of this small number of women in Parliament, I would appeal to the political parties to just field women, yeah, so that and qualified women. When we're talking about women, we're not just saying pick any woman. We're saying pick a woman who will be able to articulate issues, who will be able to represent us even as they get into Parliament. So let's please, for every political party that is participating in those by-elections.
Citizens Porsche Trading Limited has called for a National Construction Council to revisit their policies and regulations that guide the institutions on subscriptions and the registration of the local contractors. Company Managing Director Reverend Moses Lungu has charged that subscriptions and registration documents portray construction as a privilege, thereby derailing the spirit of people participating in the construction sector. He adds that the policies and regulations are not user-friendly to contractors who want to upgrade themselves. Reverend Lungu says NCC must not operate like the Zambia Advanced Legal Education, where those who want to practice construction works are subjected to difficult times.
So I think we are appealing to the Director for National Council for Construction to revisit certain conditions that they've put in place, especially for those that want to upgrade from grade 6, even coming down to grade 5, even further down to grade 4, because this is the business that goes with one's fortune. You may happen to have money, you may happen to land a very good deal, a very good business, and you want to have that money invested in a particular project, probably construction. So you can't say that you can only come to the construction business when you have trained with us as NCC.
Support for vulnerable children and active leadership. Suvuko Director Eugene Majona has recognized that reconciliation is the route to having a successful national dialogue process. Mr. Majona has asked the President Edgar Lungu and UPND leader to first reconcile before national dialogue takes place. He is of the view that before people even think of having a national dialogue, there is need to talk about reconciliation first and ensure that all politicians in the country are reconciled. He has also advised the Zambian people to realize that the national dialogue is not just about the ruling Patriotic Front, PF, and the opposition UPND, but it also involves citizens. He has since called upon the various stakeholders who have been calling for the two political parties to have the dialogue to also push the two parties into reconciliation first.
And by giving the two are the front runners to decide, then they have taken it personal, to a point where they would want to have personal issues addressed in the national dialogue. Before you talk about a national dialogue, there's need to talk about reconciliation. So my advice to PF, my advice to UPND, and even those that are calling on the UPND, calling on PF, in starting this national dialogue, I think they are getting it all wrong.
The Advocacy Against Child Abuse and Gender-Based Violence has reaffirmed his organization's commitment to the fight against gender-based violence and to ensure that there is a reduction in the cases being recorded. Organization Director Berion Chola says his organization has come up with programs targeting rural areas so as to sensitize the people on GBV until there is a reduction. He says the organization is also carrying out programs by incorporating the perpetrators of GBV. Mr. Majona adds that it is especially engaging the men with its sensitization programs because the majority of GBV perpetrators are men. He further states that it is going to prison to find out from perpetrators the reasons why they commit such vices and get first-hand information from them. Mr. Majona says that this will further help enhance sensitization, and once these people leave prison, they will be able to share their experience and stop other people from committing GBV offenses.
So we are going flat out in these high-density areas, rural areas, to go and sensitize people so that we see a reduction to these GBV cases. We've also introduced a program where we are incorporating the perpetrators of gender-based violence, the men, because we cannot win this fight of gender-based violence if we leave out the men, because they're the most perpetrators, as the record shows. And also the people that are in prisons, we've also gone there to go and find it, because we also want to understand it from the perpetrator's point of view, why they commit GBV cases. So we're also incorporating them so that when they come out, there will be people that will speak against the vice, because they've felt it, because they've understood how bad it is and where it can take a person. So as an organization, we also just want to urge people, we just want to urge the nation that it should not take a person to be incarcerated for them to know.
Makeni Islamic Society representative Jada Hazaifa has called upon Zambians and Africa at large to maintain moral standards and not imitate other cultures. Ms. Hazaifa says social media influence and the Western propaganda has brought a moral decay among the people. He adds that Africans have an identity that they need to maintain, thus they need to avoid following what they see on social media. Ms. Hazaifa has called on every citizen to safeguard their morals so that their future generation can still preserve the moral richness Africa has. He further states that anything that goes against the African tradition should not be accepted.
At the end of the day, we have to accept that we are Africans. We have an identity we need to protect. We have an identity we need to promote. So there has been a lot of moral decay because we say that Western influence has brought more harm than good. And yes, I agree with that. So we should accept things which are in line with our biblical teachings or with our scriptural teachings. If there's anything that goes against our traditional dogma or the African tradition and which goes against the divine scriptures, let us say no to it. No matter how much beautiful the Western world will promote it, we can all accept that in as much as we are poor economically, but one thing we should stand out as Zambians, that we are not morally bankrupt. And let us safeguard that so that our future generations can still preserve the moral.
That's all we had for you in our news, but before we go, a relook of stories that made headlines. Government has disclosed that some Kamlanga Ward 9 residents whose houses are built within the 50 meters radius from the rail line will not be issued with certificates of title. National Democratic Congress NDC says the pending national dialogue process should not be perceived as a process only involving the PF and the UPND. And Young African Leaders Initiative YALI has challenged the Electoral Commission of Zambia ECZ to tell the country whether the 2021 ballot papers will be printed locally or abroad. Thank you so much for your time. Bye-bye.